It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFT studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
After nearly 5 years, the IRS has finally announced the details of how the 10-year rule will work for inherited IRAs. There's no question this should influence how you plan financially, so we're sharing these important details and how your planning should adapt. All that and more on this hour of the Wise Money Show.
Actually have a few questions related to this because we've all been left in the dark with the IRS has just taken their sweet old time determining how this is actually going to work. So likely get into questions from fans of the show in the second half of the program. If you have a question, have any needs as well, we are here for you. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000 online. WiseMoneyShow.com is where you can reach us. And then all over social media as well. You can leave questions there wherever you're at. Just search the Wise Money Show. So we've got a show coming up this fall about Secure Act 2.0. There's over 100 tax law changes embedded in that document and is passed late 22 and had these 100 changes are cascading, some in 23, some 24, some in 25, some in 26. So we're going to continue to talk about that, but we're not talking about that today. Actually talking about one of the major changes in the Secure Act 1.0 that was passed late in 2019. We've all been waiting for the IRS to explain to us how it's going to work. And the big shocker was, based on what Congress passed and what was sort of written in, everyone expected that it would work a certain way. And it wasn't until 2022 that the IRS released a publication and the text and everything was fine, but there was an example in the publication that caught everyone by surprise, and we're going to share that coming up. But the central theme, before we get into the unique rule change, the central theme was with a change and how an inherited IRA from someone that's not your spouse is supposed to be treated. So how was that treated, Josh? Yeah. And what's the new rule?
Yeah, I mean, back in the good old days, we used to talk about something called a stretch IRA, which was not a certain product or anything. It was more of a strategy. And the idea was that if throughout your working career, you're piling money into a 401k at work, or maybe you're saving money directly into your own individual retirement account or IRA, you're building up a nest egg that has not been taxed along the way, right? It's growing without being meddled with by the IRS. You're not paying taxes as it grows, in other words. But eventually there comes a day when you're going to start drawing off of that account and you're going to use it to live off of in retirement. And as you pull money out of a traditional IRA, you pay taxes along the way. So it's on the distribution only. That's still all intact. That's how IRAs work, right? They're a tax deferral vehicle. It's a postponing of the tax. But eventually you'll start drawing it down. Most people are not going to draw down their entire IRA during their lifetime. You hopefully are building up enough of a nest egg that's going to stretch as long as your retirement, and you even have some margin for error there. Maybe there's some extras at the end of retirement, which means there's extras that are going to be passed to someone else when you pass away. And the question is, how does that get taxed when they receive it?
Yeah, if it's passed to your spouse, then there was a rule in February of 2006 that really simplified things, and your spouse has the choice. They can just treat your IRA as their own and turn it into their own. And most people do that because of the flexibility and simplicity that brings. But it's what happens when it's someone that's not your spouse that is the beneficiary.
Yeah, I mean, this would usually be when the second spouse has passed away and now it's going down to the next generation. So maybe you're inheriting dollars from your parents or grandparents or something in an IRA. It used to be that you had the ability to stretch those dollars out or draw those down over the rest of your lifetime. So now think of the tax deferral or postponing that's happening. If your parent or grandparent didn't spend a whole lot of money on taxes during their lifetime because they didn't draw it all down. The money stayed tax shelter for their lifetime, and now it's staying tax sheltered for your lifetime. This is a tremendous wealth building tool that used to exist. It doesn't exist anymore because of this Secure Act 1.0. And it took away the ability to stretch out the IRA or stretch out the distributions for the beneficiary's lifetime. Now it's limited to 10 years.
Yeah, stretching out the tax consequences and choosing when to pay tax on that amount of money was a fabulous tool to have in your toolbox. And this is why you want a financial plan and a financial planner, because you say, as I'm accumulating this money, what kind of tax shelter should it be in? Should it be in a tax shelter that the beneficiaries are all going to pay taxes on? Should it be in a tax shelter that the beneficiaries are going to pay no tax on?
Well, that's actually a good segue because, so when the stretch IRA was the rule, is there a required distribution if you inherit a Roth IRA? Well, no, there isn't. So there was just a 5-year rule. You need to have if you inherit a Roth IRA from someone that's not your spouse, you just got to empty the account within 5 years. And there were a few choices, but that was essentially what you did. And so, yeah, at the end of the 5th year after you inherited the dollars after death, empty that Roth IRA. I'm going to come back to that. Now, other thing. As with this rule change, Secure Act 1.0, it started and went into effect 1/1 of 2020. If you had inherited an IRA or pre-tax retirement account from someone that passed away before 1/1 of 2020, then this stretch IRA rule still applies to you. You're grandfathered in with those dollars. It's just inherited accounts from someone that passed away after 1/1 of 2020, you can no longer stretch those withdrawals over your entire lifetime. You have to empty the account within 10 years. By the end of the 10th year after death, the account needs to be emptied. Or so we all thought. That's the rule, okay? But like I said, this was made very, very confusing when in 2022, the IRS released an update to publication, I think it was 590B to be specific, and all the text and everything said all the right stuff. But there was an example in there, and it said that if you inherit an IRA from an uncle, and that uncle was already drawing their required minimum distribution every year, then in this example, it said you continue to take a required distribution every year. And we thought, well, wait a second. No, that's the stretch IRA. That's how the stretch IRA works. And it created all sorts of confusion and frustration among taxpayers to say, wait a second, what do you mean? And the IRS has then said, oh, we didn't know that this was a surprise to you. We thought everyone expected that's how it would work. And so they said, let's just freeze the application of this and we'll accept comments. Well, they've received comments, and then they said, okay, we're still deliberating. We'll make a decision later. And at the beginning of 2024, or let's say first half of 2024, they came out with a notice and said, here's what we think is going to happen. We think we're going to require that if you inherit an IRA from someone who died after 1/1 of 2020, and they've already started to take the required minimum distributions, they're past age 73, then you're going to have to take those required minimum distributions as well and have the account emptied in 10 years. So instead of replacing the stretch IRA with the 10-year rule, more so combining a required minimum distribution and a 10-year rule. But they said, we think this is going to be the final ruling, but we're not going to enforce it for 2024. So whatever we come up with, you're off the hook at least this year. And just a few weeks ago, they came out with their final ruling saying, yeah, it's official. If you inherit an IRA from someone that's not your spouse, they died after 1/1 of 2020, and they were already subject to required minimum distributions. The geek speak here is they've already passed their required beginning date, which is currently 73. Used to be 72. It's currently 73. then when you inherit those dollars, you have to take a required minimum distribution as well and still have the account emptied within 10 years. It's instead of replacing the stretch IRA with the 10-year rule, it's combining a required minimum distribution and a 10-year rule. Very confusing, but that's the new law of the land. It's going to influence how you plan. It will. The question is how. We're going to talk through a few different scenarios with that more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show. There's right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Saturday morning. Also on podcast at the same time, and then also on a couple local radio stations as well at the same time, which is why the content's broken up the way that it is. It's a talk show. It's sort of long and lots of discussion. But we've got lots of content right here on this channel, 10 minutes long, 8 minutes long, 12 minutes long, taking one financial concept, applying it directly to your financial life. So if that's more your pace, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. And if you like the content, leave questions as well. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
So we need to get into a few more of the details with it, just kind of to summarize, and then can hit the application.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Good?
Good.
Let's do it. The new 10-year rule for inherited IRAs, the IRS has finally finalized how they're going to interpret it. What's it mean? And what are the implications? How does it need to impact your planning? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. All right, guys, I was just monologuing. Who can help summarize this 10-year rule?
Oh, it's the rule that just keeps on giving, right?
Here's the summary. If you've inherited IRA dollars after, January 1 of 2020?
Yes.
Yes. So after January 1 of 2020, if you've inherited IRA dollars, run, don't walk to your CFP and work with a certified financial planner to figure out how everything has changed, because really it's all just a word salad. You can't get there from here. And I have faith that the listeners of the Wise Money Show are all above average. But if you haven't committed your life to understanding this stuff and you haven't followed the changes as it goes, it'd be very easy to get completely befuddled and to go to different. Because what's the single source of truth? Where should I go to get the answer for my financial problem? And because the problem is you can go online and get several different answers to the same question.
Right. If you have already inherited an IRA from someone other than your spouse since that January 1st, 2020, you probably already know, hopefully your certified financial planner has already made it clear to you that the day that you inherited those dollars, it began a 10-year clock ticking. And by the end of that 10-year period, you have to have emptied out that IRA. And this is all because that money is currently out of the reach of the IRS. They can't tax it until you start drawing off of it. And they want to make sure that they get to tax it. That's the whole point in all of this. And so you and your certified financial planner may have devised a strategy to say, well, when are we going to time this thing? When are we going to take certain distributions? As long as it's done by the 10th year, no big deal. What we now know, and this is part of the public service announcement of this show, this episode today, is that along the way, starting in 2025, you're going to have to begin drawing out at least some minimal amount, and it's a calculation that your certified financial planner can help you with. It will be a required minimum distribution. This is a concept that you need to know and understand anyway, because you're probably building up some retirement nest egg in your own IRA or your own 401k, and you need to know that someday you're going to be required to draw out of that account as well. And there may be implications if those distributions are overlapping while you're flattening out the inherited IRA and you have to start drawing on your own IRA. it may get complicated here. And so to me, I love that Kevin simplified it down to not how do you understand this, but who do you go to help make sense of it all, right? And it should be your certified financial planner.
So let's talk through some of those scenarios then as you're thinking about this. And the first is, okay, you've inherited an IRA from someone that's not your spouse who passed away after 1/1 of 2020. What are the strategies that you could consider? Here's one. This exact real life example. Had an individual who lost their mom. Mom was a widow, and mom passed away late 2021. And as she came to us seeking some financial planning, she is single herself and was looking at retiring in about 8 years. Her income, about $150,000, $160,000, and we looked at this IRA and said, you're not forced to take a required distribution. Let's not take one. And all along, we've said, hey, the IRS is deliberating here. You might be forced to take one at some point. But until they require it, let's just hold off. And if you happen to retire right before, which is her plan, right before this 10th year, then we take big lump sums to make sure that we pay taxes at those low rates instead of adding this income onto your high income today. Now, that is still the plan, unless she comes in and says, hey, I'm going to work a lot longer. That's still the plan. But starting next year in 2025, we'll have to take a small distribution, which my guess will be about 10 grand. It's not going to completely blow up her tax strategy, but it's some dollars that we wished we could continue to defer. Mm-hmm. But the plan is to take those required minimum distributions starting next year, but then still take a very, very large distribution in that 9th year and or 10th year to empty the account.
That's right. If that extra income for you, that required distribution, or even the bigger chunks that have to be pulled out later, if it's going to push you into a higher tax bracket, push you into a position where you're starting to feel some real tax pain, maybe you start looking at other places where you can take some of your own wages and stuff more money into your own retirement account to essentially help offset the additional income that you're getting out of the inherited IRA. It could be a way to sort of neutralize this tax hit that you're going to be taking. That again, that's only possible if you're not already filling up your 401k at work or retirement plan. What about your spouse, though? Are they filling up their bucket also? So anytime you have surprise income or it's unexpected, unintended income that is going to have a tax ramification to it, you ought to be at least talking with your certified financial planner about, are there strategies I can do in other areas of my financial life to give me a tax benefit that offsets this tax hit here?
I mean, here's an idea. So even though this requirement is based on a rule that went into effect 1/1 of 2020, it's not going to be enforced until 2025, and you don't have to make it up. However, we know that midway through 2024.
Yeah.
And if you're looking ahead and saying, you know what, my income this year is actually a little bit lower than I expect it to be next year or the following. I think I'm going to get a raise next year, or I think we had a rough year this year. The bonus wasn't that big, but next year I would expect the bonus will be higher. You actually might want to take a distribution from that inherited IRA this year. Mm-hmm. And maybe even parlay that, combine that with what Josh said. Maybe you've got a high deductible health plan and you can fund an HSA, but you're currently not. What about taking a withdrawal from that inherited IRA this year, even though you're not required to, and using that money to max out your HSA? Yes, it'll be taxable to you, but then you'll get an offsetting deduction by making the HSA contribution.
Yeah, I just had this situation where after years of not working outside the home, a mother is going back to work. She's going to go be a teacher. Okay, so she starts in September, and she'll have earnings this year. Well, their income will basically be permanently changed going forward. So this is the year, even though she'll still have a partial year of income, this is the year to get a little bit more aggressive on paying some taxes on that inherited IRA.
Another situation that I think is common right now. Again, if you're looking at this generationally, things happen. But when is it possible? What stage of life are you possibly in when you inherit an IRA, maybe from mom and dad? Possibly at a time when you've got kiddos in college, and when you've got kiddos in college, you want to be very sensitive to what your adjusted gross income is, so that you can make sure that you get the full American Opportunity Tax Credits. This is a tax credit, so dollar for dollar reduction in your tax bill, 100% of the first $2,000 that you spend on tuition, and 25% of the next $2,000 that you spend on tuition. So $2,500 back in taxes on the first $4,000 you spend on tuition. However, your income needs to be below a certain threshold. And you've got to look at so many people, because they haven't been raising those thresholds over time. You're looking and saying, yeah, we're really close to being above that limit. And now we've got to start taking this withdrawal from this inherited IRA. We're going to be above that limit. So work with your certified financial planner. Can you increase what you're contributing to your 401k? And you might say, well, God, now we don't have enough cash to help with college. Yeah, but then supplement that by drawing out of the inherited IRA so that it neutralizes the impact on your tax return. You still get those full tax credits, but you've basically moved money from one pocket to another, and done so in a very proactive, planning way. So those are a few strategies to think about if you are in this situation where you've inherited an IRA from someone after 1/1 of 2020. There are other planning implications, other scenarios as well that we're going to be helping you with. We've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All righty. If there's more or others, another example you want to hit?
I maybe have another example we could hit real quick.
Okay. And then we'll transition to the next scenario. So third segment.
What scenario? The question scenario?
No.
I thought we were doing questions.
Yes, we're going to get to questions, but we're going to hit a few scenarios. So what if you are taking care of an aging...
Okay, there you go, on page 3. Top of the page there, Mike.
Top of the page.
Okay, let's get to that one.
Got it. All right, third segment.
Wait. Okay, I'm ready. Doesn't make any sense. Okay,
here we go. Are you with us?
Wait.
Kevin, are you here right now, or are you in 3 different places?
Actually, it's more like 6 different places.
All right,
dude, bring it. Like I'm waiting on you. You said let's have some fun. I'm waiting to have some fun.
I know, but you just said wait, and so I'm like,
oh, I said wait.
Yeah.
No, I said wait.
No, okay.
Yeah. Why did you say wait?
Just messing with him.
Oh, well, that's real funny, Josh.
Sure
We're
is.
trying to be professionals.
I'm having
here.
fun. I don't know what you guys are doing.
All right, here we go. Here's to the brunch life. Huh?
We got our giggles out. Everyone ready? All right.
Can't promise.
What are the planning implications of the new 10-year rule and how the IRS has officially said they're going to interpret it? It's going to impact your planning. It does. Whether you are the beneficiary of an IRA from someone that's not your spouse, or you're building up your own financial resources. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there, follow us there, and rate the program there. We appreciate it. All right, so we've just defined, gosh, it's more complicated than it should be, but how the 10-year rule works when you inherit an IRA from someone that's not your spouse. One of the questions we get is, well, what about a Roth IRA? What if I inherit a Roth IRA? Well, the rule is the account needs to be emptied by the end of the 10th year after death. But if the person that you're inheriting the dollars from has passed their required beginning date, where they're taking RMDs, then you have to take a little bit out every single year. You have to take an RMD. Well, guys, what's the required beginning date on a Roth IRA?
The day after never.
The day after never. There isn't one. Now, will there be one in the future?
Absolutely.
Probably.
Guaranteed.
Probably.
Guaranteed.
But there is not one right now. So if you inherit a Roth IRA, you just, sit back, kick your feet up, wait 10 years. I mean, you want those dollars to grow tax-free for as long as possible. There's not a ton of planning when inheriting a Roth IRA. Just wait. And don't lose track of that time, because empty it in the 10th year. Now, unless there's needs for cash or some other things. But okay, so we were talking through scenarios if you're already in this situation. That this has been real to you because you inherited some dollars from someone that has passed since 1/1 of 2020. What are some more strategies, Josh?
Well, I like how you made reference to what stage of life are you likely to be in when you inherit an IRA, maybe from a parent or someone like that. And you said you could be in the college years, and that may be the age band that you're in. I've seen a number of people who are actually approaching their own retirement when their parents pass away. And so if you now have a 10-year window of time to flatten out or distribute money from an IRA that you inherited from your parents, and that 10-year period is going to extend into your own required minimum distribution age when you're 73 or older, now all of a sudden you're in a situation where you've got mom or dad's IRA that you're going to have to pay taxes on a little bit each year, all of it within 10 years. And then you also have to start drawing a little bit out of your own IRA as well. And so, this may be a situation that as you get into your own required minimum distribution and you're drawing off of your own IRA, maybe you need to consider things like a charitable distribution from that IRA where it goes straight to the charity that you've been supporting for years. But at least it doesn't get counted as income to you in the process. That's a strategy we've talked about many times on the show. But also don't lose sight of the fact that, I'm thinking of a couple clients that I've done some joint work with Jared Moxness, one of our certified financial planners who's also a CPA.
Rock star.
I love doing joint work with Jared because he totally nerds out on this stuff. I mean, he gets the details nailed. And he was helping run a multi-year tax projection for this joint client. And it was important because it wasn't just an IRA that this client had inherited from his parents. There was an annuity in there as well, which is another tax-deferred vehicle. And when you pull money out of an annuity, you're likely to pay taxes on a lot of that income also. And so we needed to actually be looking not just at this year's tax picture, not just next year's, but an entire decade or more.
Yeah.
At where should we be placing these distributions over multiple years? This particular client is a business owner, a part owner in a business that he's probably going to get cashed out of in a few years. So all that's happening within the 10-year window as well. And so the point here is that this isn't just in a vacuum for a lot of people, just an IRA I've got to deal with. There's other stuff often that gets inherited. There's things in your own financial life that have to be accounted for. And the way you do that is in the context of a financial plan, and especially one that includes a multi-year tax projection with your certified financial planner.
When do you need wisdom? When do you need wise money? When there's a decision to make. And there's decisions right now. When should you draw this money out? You're forced to draw it out by the end of the 10th year, but are there planning strategies?
Now, and if you're ignoring that right now, that is a decision, right?
Yeah.
You're making a decision to squeeze more of the distributions out in future years. You're kind of don't stick your head in the sand. Don't ignore this for some period of time and wait until the last second when the IRS's rule interpretation is essentially forcing your hand, right?
This is why we did a show recently, an anniversary show, and we were talking about wisdom. And we said, well, wisdom is knowing what to do when a decision needs to be made. But wisdom is also knowing when a decision needs to be made.
Yeah.
Because it'd be very possible to not even realize, hey, a decision needs to be made. And by not making a decision, That's a decision.
Let's go get proactive here. Talk about another scenario. Again, this is where this rule is going to impact your financial planning. In one way or another, it will. So I've got some folks that are starting to help mom and dad who are in the late stages of their life. And they're not providing individual care themselves, but a sibling is starting to go over and check on them every day. They have just reached the point also where they're hiring some caretakers to stop by the house for a couple hours a day to make sure everything's okay. And so while in that scenario, we've talked about planning for inheritances. We did a couple of shows about that last year, and it used to drive me nuts when that would be the focal point of some of the planning. Will you get an inheritance or not? And so refer back to those episodes for some content there. But now the question of, hey, is there a chance that you're the beneficiary of an IRA, large IRA that likely will be passed down to you? That question now needs to be part of the plan. It does. Because in this scenario and in many scenarios, hey, gosh, we hope mom and dad's health can improves, but it's possible we're in the late stages of their life, and you now are aware they're not going to spend through that IRA. I'm probably going to inherit it some. What are the planning strategies then?
And that will be a tremendous blessing in your life if that occurs. It can also be disruptive to the game plan that you've laid out for yourself if you don't incorporate that into the game plan, at least the possibility that it could happen. And so it is important for your certified financial planner to just understand and be aware not only what resources are you building for your own future, but are there potentially some blessings that you could be receiving that transform your financial game plan? And how will you adjust, right? It's not too early to be thinking about that while your parents are still living, because what if you had influence of any kind in their financial life and you could suggest a strategy to them that benefits them and their kids and grandkids? Wouldn't you want to share it with them, right? And that could be something as simple as should they be doing some Roth conversions during their lifetime to fill up their lowest tax brackets while they're still available to you and to the family, or to themselves and the family. Roth conversions are a way for them to go ahead and pay taxes during their lifetime so that you and your siblings or the next generation doesn't get hit with even bigger taxes because they inherit it as an IRA still.
Yeah, giving someone the vision for figuring out how to pay the lowest amount of taxes on that money between the various generations. And if grandma and grandpa are still alive, that's awesome because as soon as one of them dies, the tax rate basically doubles, and likely the Social Security gets cut in half. But all of a sudden, if you've got one person to do this with, the tax planning is a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's more limiting. So I immediately, again, in this situation where you're dealing with aging parents, and you're not thinking about the money, but there's got to be some awareness and some planning. I think of Roth. I think of Roth conversion for mom and dad at that stage in life, if it makes sense for them. And I think of you where you're looking at your financial plan, that tax projection for you, saying, well, hopefully it's out there in the future, but in a couple of years, there might be some income that we're going to be forced to put on our tax return by these required distributions from an IRA. Let's start having more dollars right now going into our Roth IRA. So, all right, more implications and planning opportunities, that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Is there time to maybe unpack some estate planning issues with that?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is getting directly into one of the questions, and so we're not going to be able to get to it, but anyway, we'll just continue on the track. I don't need to tee up the question. Just keep going. All right, so fourth segment, land on the plane.
Dude, waiting on you.
Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFT studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show, as well as a lot of other content, over 1,000 videos on the YouTube channel, the Wise Money YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, turn on notifications so that you're made aware every time we drop new content. Subscribe to the show as well. You can leave questions there. You can share easily the content with others. So go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there. Talking about the implications of the IRS, their interpretation, finally, after 5 years, how they're interpreting the 10-year rule with inheriting IRAs. And talking about one scenario where, you're not greedy, thinking about the money and all that sort of stuff, but you're starting to care for mom and dad. They're aging, and you're at a point where at least you're thinking, I don't know. It's not looking like mom and dad are going to spend through all of their assets, and it's likely we're going to inherit some IRAs. And because of the new rule, if you need all the money, you can take it all out and pay taxes on it then. But if you don't need all the money, you're going to be forced to draw out at least a little bit, assuming mom and dad are past their required beginning date, past age 73, which likely in that scenario they would be. So what are some implications, some planning implications if you haven't inherited the dollars yet, but it's likely to happen in the next couple of years?
Well, I think, again, if you have a view into your parents' financial lives and you have a voice in their ear that can help them recognize great ideas from good ones, you may need to spend a little bit of time understanding how their estate plan is structured.
Yeah.
There are a lot of folks out there who have a very simple will in place. I know of many people who maybe they took advantage of an offer at their church or through their alma mater or something like that, where, hey, we will help you put a basic will in place if and we'll pay for the cost of it. We'll hire the attorney and get this will for you if you'll just name us in some way as the beneficiary in your will. Okay. A lot of churches will do this. And so maybe when you pass away, the way your will is written is that maybe 10% of your estate is going to go to that church or to that college or university or something. If that's the case, it may or may not be the most efficient way for dollars to pass to that charity. Because the will, you got to understand, what does the will govern when you pass away? It handles things like your house, your bank accounts, other assets where you don't have a beneficiary named on the account. So your will has actually a limited role when you pass away. A far better way to leave money to your loved ones or to the organizations that you care about is by naming them as a beneficiary on your account. And since we're having a show about inherited IRAs, let's talk about the IRA. The IRA for you, if it's a traditional IRA, has a whole bunch of money in it that's never been taxed before. And it may be better for you to leave a portion of those dollars to the charity than to leave bank account money or the proceeds from your house or something like that, because that money doesn't even have an IOU to the government attached to it. There's no tax bill attached to many of those assets. So don't leave money that has no tax bill attached to it to a charity. Leave dollars that do have a tax bill attached to them to the charity, because the charity pays tax at their rate. And what is their rate? It's 0, right? Mm-hmm. So you could actually, just by changing the way that the estate plan is structured and being more intentional with which assets will go to that church or that school, you may be able to flatten out some of the tax bill that otherwise is going to ultimately land in your family, your loved one's lap, if you don't try to neutralize that during your lifetime.
Your certified financial planner, it should be providing 3 things to you: clarity and confidence, but then also creativity. I mean, that's a creative approach that most people aren't going to think of, and not so creative that, oh gosh, that could get us in trouble, but a creative approach to, okay, well, this is the objective. These are the things you're trying to accomplish. Are there more than one way? Is there more than one way to accomplish that? Mm-hmm. And are there some that bring synergy to your financial life? let's continue with another scenario. This is where I've shared that this ruling is going to impact your financial plan, your financial decision. So not thinking about, well, will you inherit something, but instead, will you leave an inheritance? So say this new 10-year rule, this interpretation, required minimum distribution, accounts need to be emptied within 10 years. You're in your 50s and you're building up wealth. Does this influence your own plan when you're thinking about leaving a legacy or saving up for retirement? Should this influence your financial decisions?
Well, this isn't exactly what you're asking, but I'm still thinking of a scenario where maybe you are on pace to have more than enough in your lifetime, and there might be an inheritance coming from your own parents. If you're in your 50s and you inherit some dollars in an IRA that you have to flatten out in 10 years, and now the whole rule here that we're highlighting today is that you have to be taking a distribution each year along the way during that 10-year period. It may allow you to delay some of your own distributions and even delay your own Social Security decision by living off of some of those inherited dollars and allowing your nest egg to continue to accumulate for the future. Out there in the future, you may be thinking about strategies like the Roth conversion that we were talking about. Is it possible for you to begin neutralizing some of your own tax bill on those dollars that are going to be left over? Do it, again, during optimal years when your income is lower. Don't just blindly do this every single year, because there are some years that are great to do Roth conversions and other years where you wouldn't want to. But the point is it should be it should be one of the strategies that you are constantly talking about with your certified financial planner. If you ruled it out last year, it doesn't mean it's ruled out this year. It doesn't mean it's not going to be a great year or next year as well. The point is each calendar year, each tax year needs to be looked at in and of itself for the strategies that make sense at that time.
I think tax diversification. I think this ruling makes that from a good idea to a great idea. And tax diversification, what does that mean? That not all of your retirement dollars, all of your assets are in the same tax treatment, tax shelter bucket, okay? If all of your dollars you've only saved up pre-tax, all of your company matches, of course, pre-tax, and you've never done any Roth conversions, and you're hearing this rule, I would say get started on tax diversification. Again, don't blindly say, well, then I guess I need to start doing Roth conversions or start making Roth 401k contributions instead of pre-tax. Talk to your CFP and look for those opportune times. See if it makes sense. But yeah, I think because of this ruling, the need and benefit of tax diversification just went higher.
Yes.
You now need to have more choice. So because as you're building up your own financial wealth, you're going to want that tax diversification in retirement to decide, well, we need to do a home renovation. Should we take it out pre-tax or Roth, or are there other options? But then it also benefits you if you're looking at your legacy, your financial plan, and saying, yeah, we're probably not going to spend all this money in our life. You might not know that when you're 40 or when you're 50. But making decisions then so that you have more flexibility, should you realize that in your 70s or 80s, yeah, that's beneficial. So
the other thing I would say is if there's a chance that there's going to be money left over at the end of your life, get started now. Get started early on helping to educate your kids who may be the recipients or the beneficiaries of this. Not every dollar that gets left behind after someone passes away is a blessing in the recipient's life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can actually do harm because they weren't ready to receive it. They make poor choices because they've never had to make this type of decision or this size of decision before. And so, you could think back on, well, how well have we done with transferring our values and our skills and everything to the next generation? Are they ready to receive it? If they're not, now's the time to get going on that, right? Yeah. Be very intentional. And it may feel weird to be trying to educate your adult children, maybe you're hiring a certified financial planner to work with them to be that voice in their life. But whatever it is, now's the time to begin making that investment in them.
That's right. That's right. So that's the new 10-year rule, how it works, the planning implications. Work with your CFP on that. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, all of us at Korhorn Financial Group, have a great week. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.